What's at the core of your menopause belly woes? Answer these three questions for me. Is your waistband tight by afternoon compared to when you put your pants on in the morning? Do you have some handles around your waist and back that you never had before? Do you frequently feel fatigue in the lower back at the end of the day? If you answered yes to one of those questions, even one, stay tuned. This episode is going to give you a little foundation for resolving your menopause belly. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to Flipping 50, where I share answers and I answer your top struggles and concerns by sharing information about what to eat, how to move, and how to change your mindset lots of times about how to eat and how to move. Because let's face it, what you learned back in the 80s, we may need to unlearn before you can really learn what's true of you, not only now in science that we would never teach a young 20 something today, but what's true for you and has changed because of hormones in this moment that you're in. It's all supposed to be easy and enjoyable and fun, so you can get the energy and the vitality that you want, need, and deserve in this second and better half. And if that sounds too good to be true, you, my friend, may just need a little bit more of that mindset support. So let's dive in here. Let me give you a quick menopause belly quiz. Actually, I did. So those questions again, let's review it, right? So, is your waistband tight by afternoon compared to when you put your pants on in the morning? Do you have some handles around your waist and back you never had before? And do you frequently feel fatigue in your lower back at the end of the day, especially if you've had to sit all day, but definitely if you've had to stand much of the day? If you answered yes to more than one of those questions, you have more than one reason behind your menopause belly. I'm going full steam ahead into all of these in an upcoming masterclass, and you can get the details at flipping50.com/core care. No spaces between those two words, core care. And if you're listening far into the future, I'm going to do what I can to make a replay option available for you again with hope and fingers crossed. But with technology, you never know. So get into this session, reserve your space. And if menopause belly isn't really a thing for you and you're listening before July 14th, 2021, you want to be there. Save your seat right now. So look, that's probably one of the most common questions I'm asked is, how do I get rid of this? And someone is inevitably patting her stomach, holding on to a piece of her she wished wasn't there, including my 87-year-old mom who asked me that 7 years ago. She's now 94 and yet now still needs a strong core. So she may be asking less, but she doesn't need it any less. So this is very crucial to your overall health in so many ways. Sure, everyone wants to look better in a bathing suit or a silk dress, as my friend and colleague in the fitness industry so pointedly pointed out recently. Collectively, I'm not just talking about vanity, but about absorption of micronutrients from your foods, heart health risk, the ability to balance while standing and while moving, and avoiding lower back issues. You can be skinny, slim, but with belly fat increasing, your risk of heart disease. You can eat the healthiest diet on the planet and not be absorbing the goodness from it. And you can be doing core exercises and getting closer to injury with each and every repetition. So these things are truly important for you to revisit. So I'm going to break things down just a little bit here. And remember, there's no way that in a short podcast that takes you for your daily walk, I'm hoping, that I can cover it all. But we're going to go much deeper in the masterclass and hit on resources because I'm not a doctor. So, literally, if it is something to do with your gut and your belly and you're not absorbing those nutrients, what I can give you is the signs and the symptoms to know this is the key for you to get to feeling better and getting the fitness and the body shape and type that you want. And I'll share resources that I am oh so lucky to have with a network of health and fitness professionals who are on the cutting edge. And yet, by that, I mean soundly grounded in science, but not all of which is recognized by Western medicine. So, if you get the runaround and you keep going to doctors who say, your tests come back normal, honey, you are being compared to a lot of people who've been tested who don't feel very well. So normal means you're just as sick as them, almost, right? What you want to be is optimal. And unfortunately, your lab results don't come back telling you you're at optimal. So even if you order a self-directed lab, meaning you and I can order labs anytime we want to, and get the result back and have them to go over with a health coach. If you don't know what you're looking for, you definitely do. But even on that lab report, you will see here's norms, here's you, and you'll see highs and lows pertaining to that. And in a lot of cases, they may come back normal, although you don't feel normal. You don't feel 100% you. And that, my friend, should be normal. That's not even optimal in my mind. So, why are we satisfied or walking away from those doctors feeling worse than when we went in because now we still have no options and answers, going to the authority and the credibility that we thought we were going to? We thought we were going to get answers. So, if you're no longer, it's potentially time to explore something different. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the challenge with when it's vanity. And let's face it, that gets our attention. My mom was 87 and she said to me, after I'd given up years ago, hounding all of them, all those family members, about how to exercise, when to exercise, why to exercise, because it just wasn't working. But she then reached out and said, while you're here, she's patting her belly, could you show me some exercises to work on this? 87 on blood pressure medication, on cholesterol medication, having already fallen and broken a hip. We know that means osteoporosis. And it's the belly, that the look. And that's what was the motivation. So look, it's not going to end. And I don't care. And you shouldn't. It's a 2-for-1. So if you're thinking this is vain, I'm at a pretty good weight and I'm pretty healthy, but it's just this. Okay, it's a good thing because it means potentially something different to you. If it is happening from bloat, that means you're not absorbing micronutrients from the foods that you may be eating. You may think I've got a super healthy diet, but one woman's healthy is another person's poison. Our guts are different. Our microbiome, that's the good gut versus bad gut bacteria, and that whole environment in there is so very different from your sister, your best friend, from another woman on the planet. So certain foods that even used to agree with you may not. Certain foods that everyone else says, quote unquote, this is so healthy, like kale and spinach, you may not be able to tolerate. Believe it or not, I'm in a moment in time where I don't tolerate them very well. Raw spinach and kale and vegetables like that, and those leafy green veggies really are not agreeing with my system. So that means it's not necessarily that food is the culprit, but it may mean something else was, and that's disrupting your ability to digest those foods. So it's a mystery you want to solve, but I will tell you and show you what are the signs and the symptoms. Here's how you know this is the problem, and here are the solutions and the resources. And that's where you want to get. Now, let's talk a little bit about heart health risk. So, even though you may say to me, my weight is okay, really, it's pretty good. And, I'm strength training and I'm doing intervals, I'm decreasing my cortisol level, I'm doing all the things. However, if you're putting on weight around your middle, post-menopause, that is an increase in your heart health risk. If you're a female and your waist girth, the measurement around your belly button, is greater than 35, that increases your heart health risk dramatically. So you want to look at that. That's an easy add. And then there's some other measures that are your waist to hip ratio, for instance, but super easy, super fast for you to take that type measure around the middle and look at it. But even if you're not at that number, maybe you're small framed, you're petite. However, your belly is not what it used to be. It's changed. And that seems to be where you're depositing weight. That's a greater heart health risk for you. So as you watch that and know it, if you also watch what about your cholesterol? What's happening there? And any changes negatively in blood pressure? Those two are now compounding. And it's not unusual for a woman in menopause or postmenopause to have an elevation of cholesterol. So there are things that you can do to exercise correctly to help that, as well as to change your diet. And hint, hint, it's not necessarily decreasing cortisol in foods that you eat. We no longer believe that, say, eating eggs and in some cases eating saturated fats will dramatically increase cholesterol or even at all. So it's something to dive into and explore with somebody who's a little bit more on top of it. All right, let's look at your ability to balance while standing and moving. What did I mean by that one? So, your core, even though it may be the way you look, really, that menopause belly is bothering you for those reasons. If you're not doing core exercise that conditions your core muscles, and by this, I really mean those deep core muscles, the ones right next to your spine from the front side and from the back side, in not too long into the future, that can be a real problem. Balance when we age becomes a problem. And a couple of reasons are this: we take in our information so that we can balance from three different systems. Your vestibular system, that's kind of your inner ear system. And I will tell you that vertigo is actually much more common among middle-aged and older women than it is among men and any younger age groups. And when you don't have that, your balance is off, dizziness is common. For some women, it goes away. For some women, it's always there. And they've got to be conscious of what kinds of things they need to do, number one, to fix it, and number two, what you do to avoid it. Next is your visual system. So we use that vestibular system for balance. That's your inner ear. And then the visual system. So don't know about you, but my vision is not what it was 20 years ago. Cannot remember the exact time and date that I joined that need to wear glasses club, but I did. And I'm not talking about readers. I'm talking about the inability to see the golf ball after I had hit it. I can see it. I can connect with it when it's on the tee, but I could no longer find it. Do you know how irritating that is to other people that you play with? Very, very irritating. And it wasn't necessarily because it was in the rough, right? It could be right there in the middle of the fairway for all I know, but I can't see it. And if you're experiencing any of those things, but definitely not now, 10, 20 years from now, cataracts are common. So if you don't have the visual cues anymore about your surroundings to take in, and or you don't also have the best vestibular feedback coming in from your inner ear that gives you a sense of balance and when you're upright and over that center of gravity, you are going to rely more on the third system, which is your core. And so it's like a three-legged stool, only now we're really in trouble because you may just have one leg. So you really got to increase the ability to use that core. And it's going to be more and more important to you when you can't see and when you don't feel as comfortable and confident that you can gather information from your surroundings. Think about an older adult, that typical picture that comes to your mind where they're slumped over, rounded, looking down, because that's what we do when we don't want to fall. It's inevitable that that's where our focus will go. We want to go down. We want to be sure there's no curbs, no rugs, no potholes, and that's the way intuitively we feel best. Now, is it the best way to hold ourselves so that we actually do have better balance by being upright and over our center of gravity? No, but it's simply a way of protecting ourselves. And it's just the intuitive response when you don't, as is shuffling, keeping your feet on the floor as opposed to picking them up. Often older adults don't even realize they're doing it. They'll be surprised if you tell them, Mom, you're not really picking your feet up. Can you do that? And that's something to pay attention to as well. But core strength. How do we work core? The best ways to work core are not necessarily on your back and on the floor, but it's one way. If you can't get to the floor, there's no reason to feel like you can't do core that is adequate and beneficial. And I'll share with you the ways and the best ways to begin doing that in a way that's very different than you were taught. Again, going back to the 80s potentially, when you were in your late teens and your early 20s and learning how to exercise for the first time. And unfortunately, probably are often still cued this same way in some of your videos, those videos that have been put out on YouTube long ago that are still going to live there. And even in group fitness classes where potentially instructors are simply doing and repeating errors of years ago without intentionally knowing it. I don't believe any fitness instructor or trainer intentionally wants to hurt you, but they may unknowingly and unintentionally be using old information out of habit, out of really insufficient education and access to research, although it's at our fingertips. So there's not much excuse for that one. And then last but not least, I want to revisit avoiding lower back issues. So another fantastic reason to be strengthening the core. However, the answer to resisting, preventing, or overcoming lower back issues is not just strengthening the abdominal muscles in the front of the body. Your core is everything from your knees to your shoulders, and I'll be talking more about all of it and how it comes together, from your glutes to your pelvic floor to abdominal muscles you may be very less familiar with and that you need to know about stimulating. We'll revisit your old training habits and ditch sucking that belly button in. And so that we can actually make you stronger and more able to recruit the right muscles that you want. So you can support yourself and reduce belly woes, menopause belly. Getting rid of it is going to require first the right kind of core, then the right kind of exercise that comes on top of it. You cannot core exercise away belly fat, but you can begin to get stronger so that you can do the right kinds of exercise that actually do support reduction of belly fat. And I'm going to dive into all of it and talk to you about what you can do. So back to the quiz. I asked you at the beginning of this podcast, is it your waistband is tighter by afternoon compared to when you put your pants on in the morning? I asked if you have some handles around your waist or around the back of your waist that you never had before, and if you frequently feel fatigue in your lower back at the end of the day. Not just as you're standing in front of the mirror thinking, oof, don't love that profile right now. But any of those reasons are reasons to join me to talk about menopause belly woes and what you can do about it. You may feel like you've got the 3-for-1 going on, that you've said yes to all three of those. So it's important that you have three solutions. And it's not necessarily as overwhelming as it sounds. It's tweaking things you're probably already trying to do for core exercise and making it better and getting you better results. It's tweaking that healthy diet you already have and really making it healthier for you. And it's actually looking at what you might need to do to tweak the rest of your exercise program. If you're ready to join me, I will put that link in the show notes again, and that's flipping50.com/core care if you want to go a little bit deeper. And if this episode has given you some insight into, okay, wait a minute, my approach, what I'm trying to do for solutions is actually like taking a hammer to screw in a screw. Then I've given you some insight and my job here is done. All right. I'd love to hear from you. If you're not already a member of our Facebook group, Flipping 50 Insiders, Flipping 50 Insiders, it's open to the public. It is actually just a welcoming place for you, those of you who are podcast listeners, who are Flipping 50 TV YouTube channel viewers, or Flipping 50 TV, literally on the Flipping 50 website. Episode watchers. There are 39 of them there. And if you've got something from a need to reduce your visceral belly fat or reduce the tension in your upper back, neck, and shoulders, or you wonder, how can you actually exercise in the way that you need to and know that I'm talking about when you've got an injury, a knee or a hip? How can you avoid self-sabotage? I've got an exercise or an episode for that. And in each episode, we cover an exercise segment, a nutrition segment, and a lifestyle segment so that you can pull all the little pieces together. What are you waiting for? I want you to start Flipping 50 today. And if you're not already connected to our community through a program, come on over to the Facebook group, Flipping 50 Insiders. And I'll see you on the flip side.